Drums. That's the drums. I'm so damn sick and tired of the media and certain other people trying to scare the hell out of us with the inflated number of child kidnappings reportedly going on in this country. Tonight's show will put the torch to the toilet paper those statistics are written on. How stupid do they think we are, huh? Stay tuned. Yeah, I tell you, this is the quietest and most polite audience we've had this year. Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to our program as we get going with you again for the new year. We've got Charles Sutherland on the home base with us tonight. He is a trustee of search reports. Now, they deal with all of the missing, all right? Charles is very strongly opposed to the notion that kids are kidnapped by strangers and says that the media blows this up to ridiculous proportions, correct?
Absolutely.
Let me ask you a question. We've all been inundated over the last couple of years with horror stories and, of course, the wonderful milk cartons that we see all the time. Every time I drink from a milk carton, I'm afraid I'm swallowing up some kid. How many of these faces on milk cartons have really been abducted or kidnapped by strangers?
As far as we can figure out, there might be somewhere in the area of 100 stranger abductions where kids are missing over the course of a year.
Well, what's the difference between an abduction and a kidnapping?
Basically the same thing. However, there is an attempt now to call abduction somebody who sneaks up behind you and gooses you.
Somebody who sneaks up behind you and gooses you, has abducted you?
Has committed a sexual offense.
I'd say they had goosed me. But I see the point you're making, Charles, but you're saying 100 to maybe 200, all right? And yet, some of the figures I get that from the various organizations around the country is 150,000 kids a year, 15,000 kids a year. I mean, they go all over the lot.
When this scare on abducted or kidnapped kids got started, one of the popular figures was 50,000 kids per year grabbed by strangers. If you figure that out, that's one victim for every 5,000 people in this country. Try that on where you live and see how much
well, it wouldn't work. It wouldn't work where I live, but I know one thing it's done is it's frightened the hell out of the minds of people. I mean, I was in a supermarket the other day, and a little kid comes up in the wheel cart right with the mother, and I said, "You're the cute little kid. Hi, how you doing, huh?" Boy, you think I was the raving sex axe murder killer. And she grabbed that little kid like I wanted the kid. I was trying to get to know her. But I mean, really, the stuff that we've been reading, all right, in the papers and all the reports, makes a parent think that their kid is constantly in danger. All right.
There is a danger. What the kid is thinking and what the parents are thinking. We're creating a generation of psychotics, afraid of strangers.
Our organizations like Child Find, a group that we're going to talk to in just a little while, and the National Center, however well-meaning, are they self-serving and self-perpetuating?
Child Find, to a great extent, when it first got started, was the greatest perpetrator of these cuckoo numbers.
They came up with the numbers?
Yep.
Where'd they get them?
Beats the hell out of me.
Out of the open sky?
And the numbers had to escalate every time they made a media appearance.
They had to get the numbers escalating. How do they get their money?
They were charging then a fee for registering a child who was abducted.
Now, I heard, now, there was an outfit, and Charles, I'm sorry to keep jumping over you right here. There was an outfit that I read about that was offering a fee, that was charging a fee if you wanted to register your child with that outfit. That wasn't Child Find, was it?
No.
That was before the child was kidnapped. You give a print of the foot, you know, or the palm of the hand or something.
Oh, there were a number of those that were
So there were some
around.
real, and I don't say Child Find is one of them, but there were some real rackets out there and some people really making some money on parents who were scared stiff of their kids being kidnapped.
Right. And there still are some fleecers out there.
Still fleecers out there?
Oh, yes.
Someone always makes money on human tragedy, don't they?
Absolutely. Or fear.
I'll tell you what we're going to do. I want to have an opportunity to meet some of the people from Child Find. I want Charles to remain with us. We're going to do that in just a second, my friends, all right? We're going to come back in just a moment. We're going to meet the people from Child Find. Lorene Solano, stand by. Okay, welcome back, everybody. We're joined on home base now by Lorene Solano with Child Find. She's the mother of two kids who were kidnapped, and you finally found the two, right?
Yeah, after 6 years.
After 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
Were they kidnapped by strangers?
No, they were kidnapped by their father.
By their father.
Mm-hmm.
You mean they were taken by their father?
Right.
Okay. Before we leave you, Charles, for just a moment, are these abductions that we're talking about really kidnappings, or have they... the only logical response that parents might have who have been viciously abused in a custody battle sometimes?
If you're talking strictly about custodial situations, it depends upon almost which state the episode takes place.
Well, you're right. In Texas, for instance, it's a misdemeanor. In New York, it's a felony.
Right. And
So
it
there's
varies all over the lot from state to state. Probably the toughest state in the country is Illinois, where it's automatically a felony.
Okay. Let me come back to Lorene because in your association with Child Find, tell me how you came to get involved. The full story.
Okay, my kids were abducted in 1980. I didn't get involved with Child Find until 1985. They were my last resort. After dealing with the police and court systems, I was getting nowhere. And I moved into a small town, New Paltz, to go into school, and down the block was Child Find. Just coincidence. Went in there and I said, hey, this year I'm going to have posters made up, see if they can help me. I didn't have the money. So I registered my kids, and 4 months later, they located my children.
Where'd they locate them?
They were located in Queens, New York.
Right nearby.
Not far.
Not far at all. How were they able to locate them and you weren't?
Well, what they did was they reproduced a photo of the missing children, all my children, and they distributed these photos through, different sources. They had put me on a few shows, and someone had spotted my daughter in
How
the
old
school.
was she?
She was 10
When they spotted her?
when they spotted her. She was missing since she was 5. And they had spotted her in a nearby school in Queens, and we had contacted the father, who was in the police academy, believe it or not. So we
Did
found
he have
him.
the right to have those kids?
No, he did not. He had visitation. I had full custody.
He had visitation. Did you let him have his regular visitation?
Every weekend he came
Every
to pick them up, and the last time I saw them was on Halloween, 1980. He took them and said, kiss mommy goodbye, you'll see them Sunday, and that was it. The next thing I knew, when he didn't bring them back, I went looking for him. He had sold his house, and everything was gone. I heard he went to Puerto Rico. Then I heard he was in Florida. So, going with different leads, traveling to different places, dealing with different jurisdictions and different police precincts. No one can help
That
me.
must have been hard for you. Did you ever get the kids back?
No, I lost my kids finally. He finally got sole custody, and I have supervised visitation at this point.
How did that flip-flop like that? If you had custody originally...
Okay, the kids were with him, say, 5 years. The youngest was 3. The oldest was 5. There's a lot of things a parent can tell a child about the other parent. Hey, your mom is dead. Your mom doesn't love you. Your mom doesn't want you. She's no good. She's a hooker. She's on drugs. And the parent bombards this child. So when they finally saw me, I was the monster. They couldn't stand me.
So you mean the courts rewarded your husband for taking these kids?
They felt it was in the best interest for the children to remain in the same environment they were in, instead of me, a stranger now, after 5 years. I'm the biological parent, that's it. You know?
Did you think it was best for your kids to remain with the husband?
Eventually, I didn't want to take them out of that environment. I didn't want them to go to another stage where they were confused and shocked. They had to get to know me again gradually. So I figured I start visiting with them once in a while, let them get used to me. I figured, hey, maybe next month they'll come see where I live. Maybe they meet their little sister and meet their family, their grandma, their grandparents, and all that.
Did this happen?
No, it didn't. After my first visit, when I went to see them, he finally agreed, because I said, hey, I'm going to get a warrant for your arrest. You're in the academy right now. Let's work things out. Let's not go back into court. You know, it's very costly. And money talks, bush walks, you know, and that's what it's all about. If you don't have the money to get a good lawyer and get into the court system, well, he had more than me.
Huh?
He had more than me. I was a student on campus. I mean, he had more than me.
Right, didn't he have as much as your new husband had? When your new husband willing to help you out?
No, we didn't have enough. We didn't have enough. And then when you're living in a different part of town, you have to get a lawyer that's in the jurisdiction to where your children are living. You know, if I live 5 hours away from my kids, my lawyer up in New Paltz, New York, is not going to represent me. He's going to say, get a lawyer in Queens.
Get a lousy lawyer if he says that.
Well,
Charles, is that kidnapping?
Technically, in New York State, it could be called kidnapping, yes.
Did you think it was kidnapping, Lorraine?
Sure, I thought it was.
Why didn't you, you head up for Child Find, you head up that group that mediates. Did you have that mediation group at that time?
No, mediation, the A Way Out program just started in 1986, last September.
Think your kids will ever come back to you?
I have faith, and I think that maybe when they're older, they'll come around.
When they're older, if they want to come back to you, will you forget and forgive the things that you feel that... Well, what things did your husband tell?
He just said I didn't want them. I didn't love them. I've known where they were all these years. So I'm dealing with angry kids.
Did you ever say to one of my producers that your husband told the kids that you had child abused them?
Oh, yeah. There was a lot of filthy things said in court, as far as me burning the children with an iron, sexually abusing my daughters, bringing several men into the house. I mean, every dirty thing you could say was said about me. So I go into court, and we go through psychological evaluation, we go through the home evaluations, and what happened was the court felt that the children should remain with their dad because they felt I was going to kidnap them and take them away from dad.
Okay, you heard what Charles said earlier about organizations like Child Find. Do you have anything to say about his criticisms of Child Find?
Well, I remember like in 1980 when my kids were taken, I read an article about Child Find, Women's Home Journal. Yeah. And I figured, hey, let me call and find out what's going on. At the time, they were charging $50 per child to register a child. Now, Child Find has no registration fee.
Where do they get their money from?
We're nonprofit.
Where do you get your money from?
We get our contributions solely by people out here, you know, just whoever wants to donate.
By telling the sad stories, by talking about 150,000 kids missing when there are really only maybe 15,000, by putting kids on milk cartons who are really with their parents?
No. Most of our parents that call us, 90% of our missing children are parentally abducted.
97%?
90% of the parents that I deal with on a daily basis have an abducted child by another parent.
Yet the national statistics show that approximately 97.5% of these children are abducted by a parent.
Right. Well, I'm talking about the statistics within Child Find. I handle all the stats in Child Find, and I'm talking about Child Find, basically what we get.
Let me ask you both a question. What constitutes, in your mind, an abduction? I've asked this earlier of Charles. I want to know from you.
I think when the child has been denied the right to contact the other parent, or when the parent is denied the right to even know where the child is living, I think that, to me, that constitutes an abduction.
Is a 10-year-old who goes to school, like your daughter was, is a 10-year-old who goes to school denied the right to contact her parent? Couldn't she pick up a telephone? Certainly she knew how to use a telephone.
What if she's scared? What if a parent says, hey, if you contact the other parent, or if you try to contact your mother or your father, we're going to do this, How about if the child's threatened? Some children are frightened. They're frightened of hurting the other parent, too, or going against the other parent.
All right, you have your mediation program. Would you tell us what it is?
Okay, the A Way Out program is an innovative program.
Say that again. What is it called?
It's called A Way Out.
A Way Out.
Right. And this program is for parents who have abducted their children and are on the run. And they can feel free to call the hotline 1-800-A-WAY-OUT, and they will speak with me. And we would try to work and see if we can get them into maybe a positive environment to bring the child into the legal environment they belong in and to get the mediation to open up the communication.
Why should they trust you to bring the child into the environment in which they belong in until they know what your mediation is about? In other words, if I had taken one of my kids, all right, away from my ex-wife, and I was in another area of the country, I sure as hell wouldn't walk back into the lion's den. I'd come back in myself and I'd say, okay, I'll sit down for mediation, but the kid stays there until we work something out.
Right, well, the parent...
I got the chip, baby.
Right, well, that's how it goes. They got the power.
That's right.
But the parents...
That's right, when the women have it, they're just as bad.
Right, and believe me, I do it as many women as with men.
How many have you done?
So far, we've had over 150 calls, and so far, 8 have been already successful, meaning 17 kids have returned home. Warrants have been dropped for the other parents. Communication has started, and they're in some sort of short-term therapy. And right now, both parents...
Who's in the therapy?
Well, they go for mediation. No, both parents have to continue going through the mediation process to get the lines of communication open, so the child can have both parents.
So you've had do you charge for that service?
No, there's no charge.
You've had approximately a 6.5% success rate.
It's not much of a high success rate.
God, you guys have filthy minds. Next, I'll tell you what, next we'll meet the men who really find lost children. Stay with us, all right? All right, gang. Okay, welcome back. Want to introduce you to a couple of guys who are private investigators, all right? A couple of gentlemen that I think you're going to enjoy meeting. Vinny Casaglio and Steve Yankers. Vinny, Steve, how are you?
Good.
Which is which?
Vinny.
Vinny, Steve? Okay, guys, these guys are private eyes, all right, who help parents find their kids. They'll only represent the custodial parent. They're usually the very last resort. So, Vinny, tell me briefly exactly what you do and who you do it for.
We do it for custodial parents who come to us by referrals by organizations to insist in helping locate their children.
How much you charge them?
We charge a flat fee of $2,500 guaranteed. If we don't find them, you don't pay us. Guaranteed.
$2,500, you don't find the kids?
Right.
You don't pay them?
You don't
They don't
pay
have
us.
to give you any money at all up front?
No.
All right. Okay. Pretty good deal, huh? Steve, move in on the microphone because I understand that you have a very real reason for doing what you do. Would you pass it on to us?
Well, since I've been involved in this, I realized that in my own life, I was sort of a victim of this as far as not a kidnapping, because 40 years ago it wasn't called kidnapping or abduction or whatever they call it today. Simple separation, custody problems. That's what we have here. Okay, it's a parent taking...
A lot of us in here have come from divorced parents and have had custodial problems.
Exactly.
You know.
It's a big problem. It's a problem where all they need is a little understanding, where a child has to go through the trauma of a divorce, okay? It's hard for him to handle something like that. Then you take him and you remove him from the other parent. Now he's got to deal with that. Then you take him and you remove him from a whole side of a family. You take his family away from him.
At what age were you taken away from your father by your mother?
Well, this was, like I said, it was a custody battle. I was 4 years old. I didn't see my father again until I was 16 years later.
16 years later?
Right.
What was your dad doing then?
He died. I went to his wake.
That's when you got to see him?
Yes.
Does that bother you to this day?
Sure, it bothers me. It bothers me every time I go on a case, because all the symptoms are there, all the problems are there. It could have been 40 years ago. It's the same as it is today. A kid is uprooted. A kid doesn't see a father, doesn't see a grandmother, aunt, uncles, cousins, so on and so forth.
You miss the whole side of your family. I lost a whole side of my family, too, because of divorce. I never saw the other side of the family.
Exactly.
Always thought they were a bunch of scum.
That's a precious thing to a child.
Got older and realized that it was right.
But it's well, at least, you know, if a child knows the other part of the family, he can have an opinion, and if he doesn't want to know them, fine. But if you take that away from him, I don't think anybody has that right. I don't think any parent has the right to say, well, listen, you're not going to know your father, you're not going to know your grandmother, you're not going to know your aunts, your uncles, your cousins, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, but
in
let me
essence,
tell you
that's what they're
something. You know it, and I know it, and probably half the people in this audience know it. In those custodial battles, the court, which of course is supposed to be impartial, isn't that impartial anymore.
I go along with that. I go along with that.
And you get a situation where you pay custody, all right, and you get visitation. I mean, you get custody and pay for upbringing. I pay for upbringing, and I get visitation.
Right.
Now, if I don't pay the child support, I go to jail. If you don't give me the visitation, the judge goes, nothing happens to you. I've seen that happen with friends of mine. You must have cases. Let me introduce a young lady here, all right? Nicolette Thulman. Nicolette, how are you? She is the Executive Director of Services for the Missing. Would you tell us about your organization?
Sure. I started the agency, as a matter of fact, from the same sort of situation. I was taken from my father at the age of 5, and I didn't see him again for 21 years. The agency is basically an agency that offers services to anyone with a missing family member, and that's regardless of the age of the missing person that's involved. We provide services that range from search and system guidance, which means that we'll help you when your child has been abducted before you have a court order. We'll help you if your child has been abducted and you only have visitation and don't yet have a court order. We'll help you get through the
your own hands by doing that?
No, actually we're not. We're helping the parent who's left behind learn what the system is supposed to do for them, and then we help teach them how to make the system do what it's supposed to do for them.
What do you think of guys who have services like this? This sounds like a helpful service. They don't charge anything until they've already found the child.
Well, I'm sure that Mr. Castiglia and Mr. Yankers aren't going to be real thrilled to hear this, but about 85% of the clients who call me who say that they've been in touch with private investigators give me the same song and dance, that the private investigator told them, flat fee, $2,500, $5,000, whatever it is, you don't pay me until I find your kid. The big hook in that is 3 weeks later, a month later, maybe 6 weeks later, they'll get a call from that PI who says, now I know where your kid is, you give me the money, I'll tell you where they're at.
Oh, come on, guys. You pull that crap?
No. First of all, you'd be violating the law in doing that, because then you would know the location of these children, which the mother or father is a fugitive. So you would actually be concealing the whereabouts of a fugitive.
You'd be aiding and abetting.
Exactly.
If our client parent tells us they cannot afford them, we put them on a payment plan, right?
After you found the kid.
After we tell them the child is home.
After the child is home.
We have located in 2.5 years.
2.5 years, we've had 15 referrals, 15 families that have come to us. We found 10 of the 15, okay? 4 of the 10 have not paid us. So I don't know what her problem is, but...
I understand. Go ahead, Benny. Go ahead, Benny.
And this is after the children are back.
I'm back home. Yeah, I understand that. But...
Now, what she's saying is probably true in a lot of cases, but this is where the groups should, and Child Find and her organization and all the other ones out there, should have some kind of list or guidelines of bad and good, which they don't do.
And we do, and I...
Are they on the good one?
No, I'm sorry, they're not.
Why?
We began our agency in 1984. In 1984 and in 1985, we received more than 15 complaints about you, specifically, Mr. Casaglio. And I did speak...
Let's hear his side,
speak
too.
with you on one specific occasion. You and I both spoke about a young woman whose children were located by a police department in, I believe, North Jersey. She was living in Jersey at the time, though, the case that I'm talking about. And I believe that your words to me were that you had told her not to contact me again, and the closest assumption I could get from you at that point was that the police department had located the children, which of course would mean that your fee would be null and void since you did not make the location. And that came from the conversation that we had together. What I'd like to address, though...
Let me answer that question
Yeah,
first.
go ahead.
I did say, I did
Go ahead,
I
Vince.
did say that. She's 100%. The mother of the 2 boys in question did not want to have a conversation with anyone. The children were home at that point.
She did call my agency.
Later.
No, right after the children came home. But what I'd really like to deal with is the fact that I think that we need to have...
I understand you have 9 or 10 clients who say that these gentlemen bilked them out of
Mr. Yankers, I have
$10,000.
not spoken to Mr. Yankers, but the total does
Yeah,
come
let's
right
set this
around
straight.
$10,000.
Well, how could they have bilked them out of $10,000 if they don't charge until they find the children?
Right.
Don't ask me. That's what I'm telling you. That's
Did
the
you ask
song
the
and dance
client
I
that?
hear and all.
Did you ask the
Did you
client?
ask the client that?
Did the clients show you canceled checks or anything for the money?
Yes.
You have
They
seen
did.
the cancel check.
Yes, I have.
No,
No.
never happened.
What I
No.
tell you,
Well, go
Because
ahead,
I
Mr.
know
Yankee.
for a fact.
the bottom line issue here.
Wait a second, folks. Wait a second. Let these folks talk.
The bottom line issue here is not specifically the problems that you may have had in the last 3 or 4 years. In the last year and a half, you may have turned over a new leaf and be an absolutely wonderful, go-get-em, great kind of private investigator. But the bottom line is that we have a lot of private investigators in this country, and we have a lot of agencies like ours that are nonprofit search groups that are in the business for 2 reasons. One is to make themselves look good, and the other is to make money. That doesn't mean that that's what I think you're doing right now, but it means that I've been in this field
Is
for
it
4
what you
years,
think they
and
did
I've seen
before,
this
though?
happen.
Is it what you think they did before?
In 1985, that's exactly the opinion I
All
had.
right.
Excuse me,
But
can-
by the same token, Mr. Yankers, I'll let you talk in just a second. By the same token, these guys have had 15 referrals and have found 10 of the children. How many referrals have you had and how many children have you
In
found?
4 years?
Yeah.
We've opened about 585 cases, and of those we have successfully closed that we have been specifically responsible for the location in of probably 125 people, and that includes missing children, missing adults.
5 years? 4 years.
We're talking 2 years that we've been in business.
That's
Only 2
cases
years.
that we
We've been in
specifically
business.
were in
Right.
business, or
We
we
have-
were specifically involved in the
In the
location.
last 5 years, I did over 250 locations, right?
But you
I
told me
would
only
call it.
15 just a minute ago.
No,
No, that's as a partner.
that is a partnership. I'm talking 5 years. I'm talking 5 years.
Listen,
Okay, it's different. She's talking long term. I'm talking since me and him been a partnership. We did.
what'd you do before?
Before?
Yeah.
I was a policeman before this,
Okay.
and I was in construction, too.
Well, I guess he thought he was doing some good helping find lost kids. Is that right?
That's right.
How? 10 in 2 years since you guys been partners, 10 out of 15 referrals, you found the kids.
Right.
4 of them you've been stiffed on, haven't gotten paid on. How the hell are you guys living, for God's sake?
Not off this.
No,
How about
this
this?
is not, no. We have no funds coming in from any charities.
And I would like, right, and I say this now, I would like you to either mail Morton the cancel check or give him a list of the clients that said we stuck them and forward them to me, and I will have a reply to that.
All right, that's fair enough. That's fair enough.
The point is,
Well, no, let me hear from this young lady. That's right. She didn't say Mr. Yankee. She said, she said, Vinny, you were a bad guy. We'll be back in just a second. We're gonna be back in just a minute to continue with this. All right, stand by. Usually I don't refer to cards in my hand. But for this segment, I'm going to keep these cards in my hand. I don't want you to think for a minute I'm Phil Downey, now. Certainly I don't look like Oprah Winfrey. But I'm going to keep these cards because I see something very nice here happening. I see a possibility of you guys becoming friends and it's working out. Vinny, I know you want to be friendly. I know you want to do a job right. Nicolette, how did they rip off the 10 grand from the 9 clients?
well, without going into a great deal of detail, because I think there are a lot larger and much broader issues to talk about when we talk about
Well, there
missing
are,
kids
but I
and
do want to
parental
know about,
abductions.
because parents are very emotionally involved when they lose their kids and they'll fork over any kind of bucks.
That's exactly right, and that's generally how it happens. A parent makes a phone call, and the private investigator says, yes, I can help you. You send me a check for X amount of dollars. And we've had reports that have ranged anywhere from $500 to $7,500. In fact, last week I got from a woman who said that somebody wanted her to pay $11,000 retainer fee, just a retainer fee, to look for her kids. And you're absolutely right. If your kids are missing, you'll mortgage your
Sure,
house,
you'll
sell
do
your
any damn
car,
thing you
sell your
can.
body, whatever you have
Yeah.
to do to find the money, to give a private investigator to find...
Well, you're right. You're right. A parent who loves their kids would be willing to do anything. I
also,
never gave thought to selling my body, but...
I don't know, what, maybe you should.
But, all right. So, on the 10 grand with Vinny, and we'll get off this in just a second.
Thank you.
All right, we'll get off this in just a second, because your organization does some wonderful things, too. On the 10 grand for Vinny, was it before 1985?
There was a case at the end of 1984 and a case at the very beginning of 1985. So you probably could say yes, it was before 1985.
So for 86 and 87, Vinny, you've been a good guy?
But I still like
Don't do that anymore, Vinny.
I still would like her to produce the names.
Mr. Caseglia, if you would like to sit down with me, we can certainly do that. But I'll tell you.
I would like it done.
With this forum, with the forum that we have in front of us right now, we have an opportunity to make an impact on the public about what's happened in the issue of missing children. And what I want to talk to you about, and what I want to talk to the people here about
You're absolutely
is
right.
this issue.
And your charges that you made, I think, are absurd, okay? My opinion,
And that's your
okay?
right. That is your right to
and
assume that.
And these charges should have never been brought up on this program,
On the
because
first
you do
place.
have a more important issue here.
Right, you're the one who brought
You're right.
you want to brought it
We
up.
have a more
And the
important
only way
Matter of fact, I brought them
Okay,
up.
but the only way to get it clear is that you, since you mentioned it and accused, should produce either the cancel checks or the names of the clients.
I will not, under any circumstances.
Not to me. Let the show. Let the show take care of
I
that.
would not, under any circumstances, release the names of parents
I'll
of
even go
missing
better
kids
than that.
without
I'll
their
go better than
permission.
that. I'll give you a list of every one of my clients in 19 since the time you said so.
That would be great. That would be
Time
great.
you said so.
Now,
Let me ask the audience. Before we resume with Nicolette, all right, let me ask the audience. Does that sound fair enough? Now, let's talk about the services for the missing, all right, and exactly what you folks do. And then I want our guests on stage to join in here, too, and see if anything's really being done. I mean, I hear all these figures, 150,000, 15,000, 50,000. The FBI has this list, that list, and in reality, it's parents snatching their own kids.
that's right. That's right. And I could stand here for probably the next 2 days and tell you all sorts of wonderful things that Services for the Missing does, and information is available to anyone who calls us or writes to us. What I'd like to address is the fact that more than 3.5 million of the tax dollars of the people who sit in this room and who are watching this television program go to support an agency called National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. That agency does not, number one, look for kids. They do not even claim to look for kids. Number two, they have a president that they pay $90,000 a year, and $63,000 come out of your tax dollars and mine.
Big business missing
He does
kids.
nothing to find missing children. What needs to be done, what we have to do in this country, if we want to bring the issue of parental abduction to the forefront where it belongs and not sitting behind stranger abducted kids, is we need to come back to some of the anger and the outrage that we had in the 60s about what was being done to our men in Vietnam, and talk about what's being done in our country today that hurts our kids. And one of the major things that's happening to them is this issue of parental abduction and what happens to them when they walk into a courtroom and they're the pawn in a custody battle. Until we address that issue as a public, it's never going to happen. It's never going to change. And kids are going to continue to be missing. Until we change what's going on with the National Center, kids aren't going to get found.
What's your budget per year?
Right now, as of the last year, which was the first year we received any real funding, we have about $48,000. $25,000 of it comes from the federal government, $20,000 of it comes from the state government, although we've seen no cash on that grant yet, and the balance of it comes from private donations. Prior to that, this $48,000 is more money than we had over our first 3 years in business total.
How much money do you make?
Right now, about $16,000 a year. It's the first year I've drawn salary from this agency.
How much money do you make, Lorraine?
About 14,000. And
About
I almost
14?
have a college degree, too.
So
You have a
I
college
also
degree,
have
too.
a college degree.
What about you? How much you making, Vinny?
All for children?
Huh?
All for missing children?
Yeah.
I wish. I would say about 11 between both of us.
Yeah, go ahead. Give me some.
11,000 between both of us.
11 between the two of you?
11,000 between both of us.
11,000 between the both of you.
And
Right.
anyway, And if she doesn't believe me, she could come look at my books.
Benny, if you run the books the same way you got the dough in pre-85, the books could say anything. Let's get back to the main issue here. How do we alert the public to these important things, right? First, I know the organization you're talking about in Washington, D.C. was founded by the parents of Adam, the missing boy. Am I correct?
Helped. Yeah, John Walsh helped.
He helped.
Find
It
that.
was tremendous. It got lots of publicity. There were television shows all over the country. The money goes down there, taxpayer money. It's not doing a damn thing to
That's
find
right.
the kids.
If your
but
kid's
they're
missing tomorrow,
certainly
they're not
sticking
gonna
names
help
in
you.
there like crazy, and they claim to have 150,000 names.
Well, actually, I think they have somewhere in the neighborhood of 45,000 names.
No,
at
they
this
claimed the
point.
last list I saw that they had upwards of 150,000 names
I
that they were
find
entering
that
into the computer.
really hard to
and
believe.
we know that's ridiculous, and we know, as a matter of fact, the 45,000 are probably
Yes,
ridiculous.
it is. In fact, their quarterly report, the last one that I was able to get a hold of, even though they are a public agency, as of April '87, they had only taken intake on about 327 kids that were supposedly abducted by unknown individuals.
There you go.
More than 6,700 were parentally kidnapped. And then there's a category of other missings and a category of molestation.
Laureen, child find. The expense of putting the pictures of the kids on the milk cartons. Does that really do anything?
I think like the photo is very important. You never know when someone will spot a child. I handle the hotline every day, the I Am Lost hotline, and I hear parents and even people who call neighbors, hey, can I remain anonymous? There's a kid down the block. We think we saw his picture, and we'll investigate it. And who knows? We have found kids through those photos.
Sure. So what we get
call
is neighbors spying on neighbor.
But still,
all right?
they see
Big
some
brother
suspicious.
routine.
But they're looking out. If they see that a kid's out there that doesn't belong to that family, they have the right to call us if they want. They can remain anonymous, and we will just investigate that. And we
How
have
do you
found
investigate
kids.
it?
Well, our investigators will deal with law enforcement agencies, and we'll deal with
So we get a hold of the law enforcement agencies before we know if that's really the kid, and we make sure we go around to the neighbors so that all the neighbors know that there's something suspicious about these other neighbors who may be very nice people, right? And I'll bet you'll find in 50% of your cases you're wrong.
Well, I figure that most of the parents that do call us, or family members that do call us, if they give us the right information and that child maybe is a missing child, and it has been correct, we have found missing children that were in schools, that have been on lunch boxes, that have been, just somewhere down the block.
Okay, well, if you can find one missing kid who has truly been abducted, I say that's probably great, but if you're going to end up spying on all of the, the innocent people out there because some old busybody has nothing to do but to stick her or his nose. Nicolette, you should keep shaking your head no.
Because that is one of the most well-used, much-abused statements that has ever been used in this field. If it finds one kid, it's worth it. Well, if it finds one kid and it scares the hell out of 450 million other kids, and it ceases, it doesn't allow us to make locations on other kids because these photographs are slammed all over the place. The abductors see these pictures, too. If you abducted a kid and you go into your grocery store tomorrow, you see that kid's picture on a bulletin board, are you going to go back to that grocery store again? You're going to pick that kid up and run again. It's going to make it twice as hard for me to find you or for private investigators
I stand corrected then. Oh, I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're next going to meet some people who have lost a child, all right? And we'll talk to them. They're in our audience. Meet some folks who have actually lost their children, all right? Let's talk to some of the people who are missing their children. Jackie Trinarch. Jackie, how are you tonight? Fine. Nice to see you. Jackie, you're using the private investigators that we have in here to assist you, is that correct?
Yes.
May we see a picture on the monitor of Jackie's youngster, please? Do we have one? Just so you folks at home, in case you see this child. Look at that. Jackie, do you know who abducted your baby?
Yes, it was her biological father.
Was her biological father?
Yes.
Why do you specify biological father?
Because he took no interest in the child whatsoever, and so I decided to move out of our household and bring my daughter up in a better environment.
Had you divorced him?
I was never married to him.
Oh, you were never married to him? Okay.
No.
Now, how about the guys who are helping you? And feel free to say exactly what's on your mind. Are they really helping you?
Yes, I found that they helped me a lot psychologically. They took no money from me whatsoever. They did a lot for me.
Haven't taken a dime. There have been no expenses of any kind.
No.
Okay, that sounds pretty good. We've got Renee over here. She lost her children. Renee, may I see a picture of Renee's children, please? On the, for the folks at home and for our folks in the studio audience. These are Renee's children. Loving family. And Renee is missing her children. Renee, where did you lose your children?
My children are victims of international parental abduction. I've been through the custody court system for 8 years. They've been secreted from me twice, and the second time they were taken in July of 1985. They were illegally taken from this country to Israel and successfully hidden there since.
How were they transported there on passports?
There was falsification on the passports. I have copies of their passport applications. There was false information regarding me, their natural mother, so I wouldn't be able to be tracked down, I assume. Their destination was falsified, and I tracked them down through the embassies where they said they were going, saying they weren't there, and just on hunches finding that they had.
Yeah, you know, on this trip that I just took, I won't identify the man's name because I'm going to do something to help him. But I ran into a gentleman who his lawyer said, I have these lawyers for you in Texas who can do a magnificent job, who can get you joint custody with your child so that you can have visitation, all right? He had visitation guaranteed by the courts, but his wife, he lives in Europe. His wife took the kids and wouldn't let him see the kids, but he still had to pay his custody support. And the lawyers charged him $300,000 and did nothing, never got him visitation. So maybe we'll do a show on these kind of rip-off lawyers next, too, because, you know, these are some of the people. Sir, anything to add? Do you ever expect to see your children again?
I'm on heavy-duty prayer. You know, I count on when they're older and they learn how to make a call out of the country.
How long have they been gone?
I haven't seen them since July of '85. They were taken the first time in 1980, and we've just...
You got them back?
No, I never got them back.
Well, they were taken in '80, but you saw them again after that.
We were just in it. Yes, I saw them, and we were just in and out of court. And when I finally got a very decent court order, finally in a fair court in Westchester County, he took off. Their father took off.
The other court orders weren't fair, but the one that was in your favor was fair?
Yes.
Okay. I suppose I think the same way. John Gates is with Jackie. John, you have a story for us.
Yes. My ex-wife, she picked up my children approximately about 16 months ago for visitation. I was the custodial parent, and she picked them up for visitation. That was the last I seen of them. And 15 months later, through the help of these private investigators here, Vinny and Steve, which they accepted a small down payment, and upon locating my children, okay, the payment was made like time afterwards, which was a very fair and reasonable price.
What was the fair and reasonable price?
$2,500.
And what was the down payment that you had to make first?
$500.
$500? That was front money?
That was front money.
And you got the kids back?
I got the kids back through their help.
Nice story. You, sir.
My child was abducted by his mother in mid-1985 in the midst of very vigorous child custody and divorce litigation. I've since gotten him back. At the time that the child was abducted, he was 3 years old. There was a court order in effect providing for joint custody for both of us and specific periods of time when I was to have him. On the eve of one of those periods, she disappeared with the child, and at that time I was living in upstate New York. She was living in Delaware. I completely lost touch with them. Telephone communication ended. I didn't know where they were.
Have you got the kids back?
I've gotten the child back now.
Good for you. We'll be back in just a second.
Are you tired of sitting home watching the same old boring television shows? Television is alive again at Channel 9. So be a part of our studio audience, if you dare. For tickets, call right now, 201-867-TIXX.
Steve Yankers. Steve, you had something you wanted to say in 15 seconds.
Yes, I'd like to make a plea to the relatives of these abducting parents. Please, call somebody and tell them where these kids are, because without you, they can't be hidden. And you are the real people that are doing and causing this problem.
And I'd like to say, if your child is ever kidnapped, the only thing that will ever matter to you is that the authorities are doing every damn thing that they're capable of doing to bring your baby home. But let's make sure that the limited resources available are committed to finding the children who are really kidnapped, all right? And not just mediating some damn not little dispute. Let's work with these people.